In politics, a dark horse is an unknown candidate who surprises everyone with the strength of their campaign. In sports, too, a dark horse is a competitor who has been ignored or someone few expect to do well, but goes on to win the event. Dark horses tend to be unassuming or modest and don't brag about their abilities. They're the ones who sit in the back of the room, waiting and watching, while everyone else battles for supremacy. Then they strike. And oh my, does Nick Rizzo strike. It may be a single devastating sentence, or a string of victories at the pool table. Whatever it is, Nick brings the world around him to attention. More than once, I have walked by the auditorium to hear someone playing the keys off of the piano, peek inside the door, and see Nick alone in the corner playing while smoke pours out of the instrument. Someone joins me and asks, "Who is that?" Nick. Who? Nick. Nick who? Nick Rizzo. No. Yes. Wow. Yes. I'm actually torn when it comes to Nick. On the one hand, I want everyone to know that the quiet Nick who sits patiently in the back of the room has talents and abilities few of us can even imagine. But I also admire his humility and disposition to let others have the spotlight. I wager we get to see both sides today. Nick Rizzo.
I got it. This is weird. What am I doing at a piano? Thank you, Mr. Arnold. Can you hear me? Sort of? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Arnold, for that wondrous introduction. See, Mrs. Storch, I changed it. I actually had a really tough time coming up with a topic to talk about, which is kind of strange considering how everybody knows how much I love talking. So I tried to come up with topics that maybe weren't as obvious, such as my love for cinema or good food, or even how I play pickleball with my mom sometimes. But with the help of someone I used to go to school with named Jack Rizzo, I realized I'd be doing myself a disservice if I didn't talk about something very important to me. Oh, looky there, it's a piano. So I started officially playing the piano a little over 9 years ago at the tender age of 8 because of a brief music unit I took when I was homeschooling. I started in February and played my first recital in May, where I played a little ditty called Agent in Disguise. That's me, I have a laser pointer. That's me playing that back in 2013, I think. Oh shoot, I forgot my medal. Anyway, I had this medal. So that performance was a resounding success, and from it I won this participatory medal that I'm supposed to be wearing around my neck. So at that point, the only purpose that music served was just to get medals and certificates. And so, like a cast iron skillet, my playing got better with age. About 2 years later, I played my first big dramatic piece called Moonlight Fantasy. And that's me playing it there. I was about 10 years old at that point, and as I practiced and performed this piece, I realized that I would start to tell myself stories as I played. Now, this particular piece told the story of my life, how I imagined it at the time. Sparing all details, it would have its ups and downs, but ultimately it would have a happy ending. So music started to mean more than certificates and medals. It now enabled me to engage with my imagination through stories and narratives. And so, like a nice pair of jeans, my playing got better with age. I started playing from the standard repertoire, Chopin, Beethoven, Grieg, and so on. And at the age of 12, I learned the Raindrop Prelude by Chopin. One day while I was practicing, my dad told me about a story he was imagining while I played, and I'd never told him that I sometimes did the same thing. So I started to realize that music now enabled me to entertain and engage with the imaginations of others. However, disaster soon struck. Playing music for others manifested itself a little too literally when I signed up to compete in a national piano competition. Consequently, March 4th, 2017 is a date that has seared itself into my memory. Let me set the scene. Now, the competition was at the Steinway Piano Gallery in Tysons Corner, DC, and my entire family, plus some extended family, were present. I was performing second to last, and the person before me was playing Chopin's Fantasy Impromptu. It's a difficult piece that would turn heads even if it wasn't being performed by a 12-year-old. And full disclaimer, I never really learned this piece. I just learned the first couple of notes for the sake of this talk, so bear with me. That was not great. So then, after she played that piece, my name was called, and I was playing the Raindrop Prelude, which you all know what that sounds like. And I had been performing for about 30 seconds when I experienced the phenomenon for the first, but certainly not the last time. I just forgot what I was supposed to play. And it wasn't for lack of preparation by any means. My mind just stopped working. So after pausing for no less than 20 seconds trying to remember the notes, I skipped a large section of the music and finished the piece through muscle memory. Excuse me. So I was extremely distraught at the time, and it seems so insignificant now. But that was the first time that I had failed at piano. I let myself down. The final performer just added insult to injury. He ultimately won the competition by playing Chopin's Revolutionary Etude. Let me reiterate, he was 12 years old. So after the competition, I got discouraged. Such a failure to reconcile months of practice and years of preparation caused me to question what the purpose of playing piano at all. I stopped practicing seriously, and after a few months, for a few months and skipped the recital that year. I also started to consider quitting the piano because I just didn't enjoy it anymore. So that summer, my grandparents offered to pay for me to go to a piano camp in Vermont. And yes, that is as nerdy as it sounds. That was probably the last way I wanted to spend my summer, and I was extremely reluctant up until the moment I arrived. The camp is basically a giant house advertised as having a piano in every room. And they're not wrong, one of the practice rooms is literally a linen closet. So that's pretty fun. At this camp, I got to meet people from all over the world who were all motivated by and dedicated to one common thing, the piano. Being immersed in this very specific musical subculture changed the way I view music. It stopped being merely a tool by which I could get honors or accolades, and it was no longer just a catalyst for the activity of my imagination. I started to appreciate music for its own sake, and I realized that I didn't have to have a reason to love music, I just did. And so, armed with new musical influences and inspirations, my passion for the piano was reignited, and like a good sourdough starter, my playing only got better with age. It was around this time I considered pursuing a career in music. I would hear the most moving, impressive pieces at piano camp and be excited and even motivated to learn them. One such piece was Chopin's Ballade in G minor. Yeah. So I was learning this piece in 2020 and would often skip lunch just to practice it. I was set to perform it in late March at a local competition, but the pandemic hit, and because everything was canceled for a long time, I didn't perform piano for about the next 2 years. For reference, my first performance since was the Winter Arts Showcase on this very piano back in February. So the next couple of months of sophomore year went by in a homogeneous blur of virtual learning, but I had high hopes that the following year would be different. Junior year came and the days continued to blur by. I was getting too much sleep, but it never seemed like enough, and I don't remember doing or thinking much about the piano other than playing it casually here and there. It was at this point that I diagnosed myself with early onset senioritis, an affliction I still suffer from to this day. And so a rather stagnant junior year passed, and in the summer, some friends from piano camp asked if I was going that year because it was canceled the previous year. This time I applied to be a counselor, meaning I got to teach lessons to younger students. And I know this sounds cliche, but it was actually a very rewarding experience. So during these 2 weeks, being back with such like-minded enthusiasm reminded me of why I enjoyed playing piano in the first place, a deep appreciation for music itself. I was able to teach the things I knew and learn the things I didn't, and during this time I became motivated the way I used to be. For example, the only time counselors could practice piano was late at night after all the campers had gone to sleep, and this is an aspect of my routine that I brought into my senior year. I would do all my homework and everything else I needed to until about 11 or 12 at night and practice piano for as long as I felt I needed. It was because of this newfound fervor that I was able to play pieces like La Campanella or play a concerto accompanied by an orchestra. Ironically, the same thing that happened to me in the competition 5 years ago happened to me just a couple weeks ago when I played the concerto in concert. Now, granted, bombing at a concert after having prepared the way I did was not enjoyable in the least. My frustration lasted only 5 days instead of 5 years this time. So people have asked me why I play piano, and I could never come up with a very meaningful or profound answer. I used to think I played piano for the sake of other things, awards, imagination, or even a sense of validation from others. But I've come to see that that reasoning degrades the role of music as an art. I play piano because I love music, for its own sake, and its ability to move people and stimulate our thoughts and emotions is merely a byproduct of the discipline's inherent excellence. And so I can think of no better way to end this talk than playing a piece by a disturbed man who wanted to bring about the apocalypse by playing atop the Himalayas.